It's been more than 6 months since Lilly and Jack Sullivan were reported missing from their home in Lansdowne Station. But now, a renewed search led by a group from Ontario is set to take place this weekend.
I think that if those children wound up in the middle river of Pictou, that there's a high possibility we locate them on Saturday.
Nothing was found in that specific area, but teams did find a few items of interest.
And it looks like it has like underwear burnt, like it's been burned.
Does that scare you as someone so close to this, like to go weeks without even news coverage?
Scare is not even the word to describe it because you just don't want it to go quiet. I want everybody to keep talking about this, to keep wondering, to keep asking questions.
You are listening to Canadian Gothic.
Miss Madeleine Klein, I feel like it's been a little while since we've done this. Your memory is so much better than mine, especially short term. How long has it been?
I think the last episode we did was with Aaron, like a couple days before Halloween.
The Halloween special, that's right. Yeah, and things have been crazy since then. I'm glad to catch up on the story of Jack and Lilly because there hasn't been a lot of mainstream news and coverage happening, but there is a lot of stuff happening that's worthy of discussion. We have a lot to get into tonight, and I think the theme for our talk is going to be keeping this story in the public eye. We're recording this on November 23rd, which is just leading into the 7-month anniversary of the disappearance of the two kids, which is just absolutely crazy. We've been marking the milestones as we went, and I honestly, I hate to say it, but it's only a matter of time before we're talking about year, and I really dread the thought of that.
Well, and we never thought we'd be here. We were expecting even our first episode to not even be aired. And here we are, no further than we were 7 months ago.
Yeah, and I say the theme of our talk tonight in a big way is going to be keeping the story alive. And the last few weeks, there has been a lot that has popped up, but at the same time, I'm starting to feel a change in the discussion surrounding this case, at least in the mainstream. There's a whole lot less media surrounding Jack and Lily's disappearance. And thankfully, there were some things that happened recently that allowed the media to again revisit the story of Jack and Lilly. We're going to talk about all that tonight. And the things I'm referring to, the 6-month anniversary had passed at the beginning of November. There was also a vigil that was for the 6-month anniversary of the disappearance, but also for what would have been, or what is, Jack's 5th birthday. We're going to talk about a vigil that happened outside of a police station related to that date. There was also a mediums to large scale civilian search that occurred, and there's a lot to talk about with that. And tonight we're also going to have a guest here. We're going to be hearing from the paternal grandparent of Jack and Lilly, Miss Belynda Gray. We've talked about her on the show before. She is Jack and Lily's biological father's mother, and she offered to come on and talk to us a little bit about the civilian search that happened just a week ago, the time of our recording, and there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff to say about that. But before we get into all of that, let's start with you. Anything new, anything going on that you want to tell us about?
I was contemplating whether or not to say anything, but that's another reason it's been so long since we got together. I took a little bit of a hiatus because I suffered a devastating loss. I lost one of my cats November 4th. So, and that, it was just, I think you and Aaron and I recorded like exactly a week prior, and I had no idea that he'd be gone by the next week. So
yeah,
well, it was
very sorry.
Thank you. It was shitty, and
you're a cat person, so I get it.
Oh, definitely. And he was my first baby, and it was terrible. So, but yeah, other than that, okay. So 2 events happened. So I lost my cat, but also our 3-year anniversary was on November 17th. If you can believe we've been doing this for 3 years already.
Yeah, that is something, eh? Time flies by because we just met at random, did an episode together, became fast friends, and next thing you know, we've been doing this for 3 years. So much has happened in such a short amount of time, but it's been a blast.
It has been fun. It's it's been, I can't believe it's been 3 years. Doesn't feel like it, but
Well, I feel like we're just getting started. That's the problem.
Me too.
Yeah, we're just kind of figuring it out now. It's 3 years. What the hell? What have we been doing?
We have to work out the kinks. So.
Yeah, exactly. We got a lot to get into. So let's start. One other thing I didn't tease that's exciting tonight is we have a whole lot of voicemails with feedback, questions, comments, and opinions related to this case. When I say there's a lot to get into tonight, this is like a variety episode, unlike anything we've ever done discussing this case. We have so much to get into that I hope you have a drink there and are settled in, because if we're going to be here a while, we got a lot. But let's start. I mentioned the first thing we'll talk about is the 5th birthday vigil, I guess we'll call it. It's the 6-month anniversary and Jack's 5th birthday. There was a silent and solemn vigil held on Wednesday, October 29th, outside the RCMP detachment in Stellarton, Nova Scotia, that marked Jack's 5th birthday and the 6-month anniversary of the disappearance. There was a moderate-sized turnout that included some people you may recognize. We'll watch a bit of news coverage of it. The children's stepfather, Daniel Martel, of course, was there. But let's listen to a short news piece covering the vigil outside of the police station.
Outside this RCMP detachment where a memorial for Jack and Lilly sits, more than a dozen people came together to mark what should have been a celebration, Jack's 5th birthday.
Wherever he's at, I hope he knows he's loved. I hope Lilly knows she's loved. We've never stopped loving her.
It was a quiet but emotional evening, filled with tears, memories, and hope.
All the days are kind of the same. You wake up and you go to sleep with the same thing on your mind, and you just want the answers, and we have nothing.
Family members read poems, and new stuffed animals were dropped off, joining the growing tribute that stood here for months. For Jack and Lily's stepfather, just being here was both comforting and difficult.
I wish I was there for his 5th birthday, but I'm not, and I can't be. At least we have everyone gathered together to celebrate his birthday.
RCMP officers also attended, not to speak about the investigation, but to stand with the community.
The memorial site is out front of our office here, so we see it on a daily basis, and the members are concerned, they care, and again, they just want to be here to support everyone that's here.
The vigil may have ended, but for those who love Jack and Lilly, the waiting continues.
So I mentioned at the top, a theme of this talk tonight is going to be keeping the story alive. This vigil and things like this, that is I think the main purpose of it. It gives a reason for the story to be in the news again. And the vigil to recognize Jack's birthday and the 6-month anniversary did do that at least. But I don't know if you heard in that news clip, a dozen people showed up. I'm surprised that it wasn't much more than that.
Yeah. I expected at least 50.
But that all said, I'm glad to see that people who care are finding a reason to get the media out, to get the police to, come and stand there and, whatever it is they do, at least recognize what's happening.
Well, it's unfortunate, but cases are so easily forgotten. And unless you have a good team advocating for you, you'll just, stuff keeps happening and you'll get pushed to the back burner. So
yeah, exactly. And you see that, and what ends up happening when that's the case, it's, if you're lucky, on the annual anniversaries, you may have the police issue some kind of press release or something. It gives the media a reason to talk. In Jack and Lily's case, you have advocates who are shaking the branches and making things happen. And again, that's our theme tonight. We have the people who organized this vigil to commemorate 6 months and Jack's 5th birthday. But there's a much bigger update that got a whole lot more media attention. I'm talking about a large-scale civilian search. I'll tell you a bit about this group. They're called Please Bring Me Home. I don't know if you've ever come across this group in any of the stories you covered, but they're a nonprofit group founded in 2018. They claim to have located more than 50 people by combining anonymous tips with hands-on investigation, like civilian ground searches, and community outreach. Please Bring Me Home announced that they were going to get involved in Jack and Lily's disappearance, and they were going to do it by way of a civilian ground search that they're going to organize, or that they will have organized. I'm going to play a news clip that covers the announcement of the upcoming ground search, and then we'll talk about what actually happened.
It's been more than 6 months since Lilly and Jack Sullivan were reported missing from their home in Lansdowne Station. But now, a renewed search led by a group from Ontario is set to take place this weekend, with an emphasis on the banks along the middle river of Pictou.
I think that if those children wound up in the middle river of Pictou, that there's a high possibility we locate them on Saturday.
Oldreeve says about 40 residents are volunteering with the search, covering a vast area surrounding the river, which he says is right across the road from the children's home. He says water levels have changed in recent months, and that's why certain areas need to be revisited.
If they were underwater at the time of the initial searching along that river, they would have surfaced and they would have gone downriver a bit of ways that we're going to cover off. So it's not so much that it's a tactic they haven't used, it's maybe a tactic that they haven't revisited since that initial time. And so that's what we're doing.
The group's search will go from sunup to sundown on Saturday, with the possibility of carrying into Sunday if necessary.
We're going to do the best we can to locate these kids.
So this is interesting, and I like the way he frames it. The voice we heard in that news clip is like the director of the Please Bring Me Home organization. He says, like, I don't think we're better than anyone else who searched here. We're giving it a second look. We're going to revisit things that they've already searched. And, you know, given the change of seasons, I'm going to give kudos to this group for being able to organize something like this and to get on TV and everything talking about it. I think this is great.
Do you know how big the body of water they're talking about is?
No, I don't. And it's and based on what I saw they put out about where they searched, they searched a pretty considerable area with several bodies of water, some of which were like moving kind of streams that they were, or rivers that they were searching. But these were all areas that would have been searched multiple times by like this, you know, the official search or the professional search and rescue and all that stuff. But I think what Please Bring Me Home is saying, like, is, you know, this stuff has all been searched, but we're going to double check it. And it seems like what they were thinking is maybe we'll get lucky.
It's worth taking a second look because water and just nature in general is so unforgiving.
And
things can surface, things can,
Oh yeah.
So unless they actually drag it, they could potentially find something.
Yeah, and it is it's been referred to as like a last ditch search, and the reason for that is here in Nova Scotia we're like any day now if there's going to be snow on the ground, and once that happens, you know, there is no searching until the snow melts, but then right after that you have spring and the spring growth, and the thaw of the snow creates a ton of mud and everything else. So like any searching after snowfalls is basically impossible or so much harder because you're dealing with snow, mud, and in this upcoming spring, you know, the new growth that's going to be over and above whatever's on the ground. So this is kind of like a last chance search. The search happened just this past Saturday. I will, spoiler alert, they didn't find Jack and Lilly, but there is a lot that happened and a lot to talk about. I'm going to play now a news clip that covers the search that had happened last week.
These volunteers split into 6 groups and spent a day in the woods of Lansdowne, the rural Nova Scotia community where the siblings were reported missing on the morning of May 2nd.
So this will be our side. We're going to follow it way down. Eventually, we're going to turn the river and we follow it up past Lansdowne Lake.
It's sad, very sad, but it's been 6 months and we need some type of closure to this case.
One focus, the area where a drone detected 2 heat sources late on May 2nd, just before midnight.
One appears like it could be small object sitting, just 2 heat signatures sitting close together near the water.
RCMP says an officer followed up, found nothing, and determined it was likely a bear, but this group wanted to be certain.
But we're just going to take note of it and do a special little search around here, especially just in case it is something.
Nothing was found in that specific area, but teams did find a few items of interest.
And it looks like it has like underwear, burnt, like it's been burned, and it's the t-shirts. So it's a unique design. So we took a picture, we sent it to the RCMP. They then spoke to family and they said that it's not something they recognize.
Volunteers also came upon a child's bicycle, a blue blanket, and an old geocaching kit with the children's stepfather's name in it. The RCMP says none of the items found are relevant to the investigation, But with everyone feeling unsettled, the volunteer group now plans to bring in cadaver dogs to do continued targeted searches this week.
So lots to talk about from there, but I will tell you, this did get a considerable amount of media attention. CBC even had a reporter in the car with some of the searchers, like actually attending the searches. This group, Please Bring Me Home, they made it happen. They got, enough people there to form teams and do a large scale ground search.
Yeah.
We heard in the news clips kind of the main discoveries that came out from this. Which one do you want to talk about?
Okay, what did they find with Daniel Martel's name in it?
Yeah, this is kind of strange.
This has piqued my interest.
Yeah. Well,
and then they said it has nothing to do with anything. What?
So the RCMP have come out and said all of the discoveries they made were passed along to us and none of it has any like evidentiary value or whatever. But the thing that they found that had Daniel's name was a geocaching kit. Do you know what that is?
What the hell is that?
Okay, a geocaching is kind of like a game where you would take like, say, like a little box or a Ziploc bag or something, and you would put a note and a date in it, and you would hide it somewhere difficult to find, like maybe inside like the roots of a tree or something like that. And then on a website, you would put the GPS coordinates of where you left it. And someone would then behind you would go and try to find your geocache. And this area where the kids went missing, like Daniel Martel grew up there. So the geocaching kit they found, it had his name and I think the year like 2014 or something. So it was just something he was doing like 10 years ago. But geocaching, that was a big thing a long time ago. I think it became popular when a lot of people had like GPS stuff on their phones and everything.
Okay. I mean,
like when that first started.
It's a cool idea. Like it's an interesting idea. I just, when I heard that, I was like, what?
Like what?
And they didn't find it any like interesting. But okay, that makes sense.
Like I think it's just unique that they found something like that, but that had his name on it of all people. But aside from that, they found some burned clothes or partially burned clothes. That photos of the shirts and stuff were ran by Jack and Lily's family. Didn't mean anything to them. They found a kid's bike, but I have a feeling if you go wandering around in the woods near bodies of water and stuff, you're going to find bikes and shoes and car tires, maybe even a car or a dishwasher or something. That stuff's just out there.
For sure you are.
And aside from that, it doesn't seem like they found much of anything.
Which is so disappointing. Imagine the searcher that found the blanket. They probably thought they struck gold. They were like, yes, this is it.
Yeah.
No.
But I think the problem though is like at this point sending people out, people that are that close to the case, like everything, and by that close to the case, like the people searching are going to be people who are closely following this case that are going to sign up for it. Like what Please Bring Me Home, the group did, is they made posts online saying, if you want to join us on the search, go here and fill out this form and, we'll contact you and make it all happen. So it's people following Jack and Lily's story or directly connected to it that actually went. That's a good thing because you have passionate people that are willing to do it. But as far as the quality of searching, I think it's almost like sending a bunch of like UFO investigators somewhere that there may be UFO activity. Like, of course, like everything is going to mean something. And if you're too close to the search, I just don't think it's like going to be effective. Everything they found was probably, whoa. And then it wasn't.
For sure.
Yeah. So when this civilian search happens, there's a whole bunch of media coverage, just like the clip we just saw or listened to. And then the RCMP just issued the statement like the next day saying like there's nothing of relevance to the case. And I don't think there's any surprise that this area was searched so thoroughly by professionals.
Exactly.
That this civilian search was just kind of like the last chance, Hail Mary, that could have gotten lucky, but it didn't.
Of course, this Please Bring Me Home search, they like their heart is obviously in the right place, but aside from, searching the water again, they're not going to find anything of importance that hasn't, like, there's been a professional search team out, multiple.
Yeah.
So they didn't just miss a baby blanket.
But again, what I like at the beginning, I say the theme of a lot of this talk tonight is going to be keeping the story alive and in the news and from going cold.
And that's very important.
Yeah. And what they certainly did, whether or not the search found anything, I think is almost irrelevant because what it did do is give every media outlet in Canada a reason to run a story about Jack and Lilly Sullivan. It's now been almost 7 months. There's a group going searching. Everyone cares and everyone is still looking. And it just gets everyone talking again. And I can, like, as someone who does all this stuff online, I can even see the effects in it. Like when something like this happens, I notice all my old episodes about Jack and Lilly, they just get a little bump because people are searching and Googling and interested again. And so it's like kicking the hornet's nest at this point in a case when it's on its way of losing public attention is so important. And if for no other reason, that search, because of that and no other reason and nothing else comes out of it, I think that search was a victory.
Absolutely. I can't imagine a lot of people are hearing about this for the first time, but when you hear about this case, you immediately think you know what happened. And then you do a little bit more research, you listen to some facts and you're like, oh, well, maybe I'm wrong. And yeah, like we scheduled this little rendezvous last week and I was thinking about it, and our last Jack and Lilly episode, you said like, maybe the police are also scratching their heads. Maybe the police don't know much more than we do. And that's what I think. I'm like, it's 2025. 2 kids don't just vanish. And like, it's just such a bizarre happening that there's no
for it to go
trace
this
of this.
long.
Yeah.
And the more time that passes, the cooler it gets, the less reason there is for CBC and the big news to, continue to kick the hornet's nest. I honestly feel like they want to cover this, but something needs to happen for them to have a reason to do it. So
Absolutely.
But it takes like people making that stuff happen. And at this point in the case, it's not the RCMP or official updates that are kicking the hornet's nest. Both of the things we've talked about tonight were civilian advocate type people who made this happen. And we're on the outside talking about the importance of this. So that's going to lead us to our next segment. We're going to take a short break. And when we get back, we're going to hear from Belynda Gray, who is Jack and Lilly's biological father's mother. So their paternal grandmother. And I reached out to her because I knew she had a role in the Please Bring Me Home search. As you'll hear, she has more than a role. It was her that really made the whole thing happen. She was the one who got them interested and got them to come down here and do the search. I asked her if she could come on and talk a little bit about what a search like this means to her, what public attention means to her and her family, and just how she feels at, now going into 7 months of searching for grandchildren that she loves very much. I say it to her in the interview. Nobody loves you the way a grandparent loves you. I stand by that.
It's true. It is absolutely true.
Well, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we'll hear my about 15-minute long discussion with Belynda, and I'll tell you, there are some parts of it that really are going to pull at your heartstrings. Belynda, for people who listen to my show, they've likely heard your name and probably heard your voice in some of the news clips that we've aired in past episodes covering the search for Jack and Lilly, your grandchildren. But since we're starting here with you, why don't you introduce yourself? Who is Belynda Gray and what's your connection to this story?
Well, my name's Belynda Gray, and I am Lilly and Jack Sullivan's grandmother on the biological father's side.
And the family tree and the connections are all important in this. So you are Jack and Lily's biological father's mother. They're
Coach Sullivan's mother, yes.
Before we start, can you just talk a little bit about what it means to you to have the community rallying behind all the families and everyone involved in this? Like, how important has it been for you to see people interested in finding Jack and Lilly?
It's extremely important. Right now, the only thing we actually have is the public. That it's so hard when you have to rely on just updates from the RCMP, and they're so few and far between. But the more we put their names out there, more and more people are coming forward. Everybody's talking about them. And it's keeping pressure to keep this going till we get answers.
Mm-hmm. And now the dynamics within the family must make it unusual in terms of your access to information. Like, have you been able to actually sit with investigators and ask questions yourself?
No, I have not.
No.
It's really sad. I had no idea. I had no idea that really grandparents, unless you go to court and fight for those rights, that grandparents don't have many rights.
And especially, like, as I said, like, given the family dynamics and the fact that that your son hasn't been in the children's lives for the last several years, that would make it even more difficult. But that doesn't change the fact that you're their grandmother and
Right.
you have a relationship and a history with them. Can you maybe talk just a little bit about your time with Jack and Lilly, and and what life was like when they were a bigger part of yours?
We had a very close relationship. We were at the hospital when Lily was born. We got to hold her. We were at the hospital when Jack was born. And we had a good, close relationship. It remained close for almost the whole first year after Malaya and my son split up, that we still maintained a close relationship. And then it started to pewter off quietly, and I knew she wanted to move on with her life, and I was all for that. I felt she deserved to be happy. But I didn't think it was going to take the turn that it did, that we were going to be completely shut off. I thought once she was settled for a bit that it would pick back up again, but I wanted to give her that space.
And what you're referring to is when her and your son Cody split up. From that point on, my understanding was you still did see the children on occasion, or is that not right? Like,
She used to come. She used to bring the kids every couple of weeks for a visit.
With you or with Cody or both?
No, with me and my partner and other relatives that I might have here at the time. No, Cody was not living here at the time. So Cody did not play a part in their lives at all after the breakup.
But there was still an effort to maintain the relationship with their grandmother, Belynda, of course. And when did that change? Like, when did you start to see it turn to,
And she told me she had met Daniel, and she stated what a great guy he was, that he was divorced, he had 2 children, and she felt that this was the one that she was pretty happy. So we were thrilled for her. And I'm assuming it was up until 6 months after she was with him. She still come for visits, but they weren't as frequent. And she was telling us that he was uncomfortable with her coming here.
Okay.
So we invited him to come. He just never did. So then when she stopped coming, we call her and say, look, we come to the grandmother's, to Patty's place. And if that works better, then that's what we'll do. So then we started visiting at Patty's place.
And Patty's Malaya's mom.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, no, Patty is Malaya's grandmother.
Malaya's great. Yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah, that must be so hard. I know, I think I've said this to you before in a conversation we had, but for me, like the relationship with a grandparent is like such a special one. Growing up myself, my grandmother and grandfather had a huge part in raising me. So I've always saw like the relationship with a grandparent as a sacred one. And I feel like there's no one in the world who loves someone the way their grandparents love them, even more so than parents. But
it is such a beautiful feeling that it's really hard to describe, because as a parent, you're worried about raising your kids. You're worried about teaching them the right and wrongs. And there's that steady pressure until they get out on their own.
Yeah.
As a grandparent, you just feel the love, just the love.
Absolutely. Now, the reason we're connecting today is I wanted to ask you a few questions about what I'm referring to as the civilian search that occurred last week. There was an advocacy volunteer group.
PBMH, yes.
Yeah, standing for Please Bring Me Home. And they did a ground search in Lansdowne Station for Jack and Lilly, and you took part in it. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about it. So first off, when you heard that there was a civil, like this volunteer organization conducting a search as opposed to search and rescue or the RCMP or whatnot, what was your initial thoughts hearing that this was going to be happening?
I had contacted PBMH back in, I think it was July when I had first heard about them. And I went on their website and you fill out a form, you explain the whole situation, and I waited for them to get back to me. It wasn't until, I believe, the end of August, I reached out again to them. And that time they did respond and stated that they were interested and that they would be in touch. And then I was in touch with the person that was leading that investigation at the time was Chrissy. She's their investigator. So I did an intake with her describing everything from my perspective, what I knew. So Malaya's family was on board with the PBMH group too. So then it was decided that they would do a search.
Okay. So I before right now, I didn't realize it was you that actually put all of this in motion.
Yes, yes. I was given their name. A woman did give me their name, and because she was from Ontario and she was familiar with the organization, and she told me I should try reaching out to see if they would respond, and yeah, they did.
Wow. And so what they ended up doing was first they put a call out for interest saying, if anyone wants to get involved in this search,
Yes.
sign up here and here's when we're going to do it. And we're going to show up. You were one of the people that went on the search. So what was it actually like? Like, what was the turnout? What did you do? Maybe talk us through the day of searching for Jack and Lilly.
Okay, we had about anywhere between 27 to 30 searchers. They were in teams of 6. Now, I was not there to be on those search teams because I knew my knees would not allow me to go through the woods.
Of course.
So I was there for the updates, if anything was found, for the moral support. I had family searchers there also. And there was a couple of places that my sister and I were also interested in driving to check out.
Okay. Yeah. And so the 27 to 30-ish people that showed up, like, who were these people? Were they just community members or was it members of the families? Like who on average, or like in general, who was there?
I would say on general, almost half of the search team was family members. The few from my side and the remainder from Malaya's side.
Okay.
The rest were volunteers. We had volunteers that come from PEI, from New Brunswick.
Wow.
From the South Shore, and then Nick's team itself from Ontario and who he brought with him.
And Nick is the leader of the organization. Yeah.
Yes.
Were you aware of any kind of discoveries or any kind of, interesting or amazing moments or anything you can share like that during the search? Like, were there any like exciting points of it that you thought like, wow?
There were a few items that were found. It's been kind of put out. There was another item that was found. My sister and I had found it. And that one we're not discussing because we don't know if it's relevant yet with the police. That is still being considered if it plays a part in anything. So we're not putting that information out there about that item. The stuff that was found by Nick's teams, because there was, like I said, there were 6 teams, and 2 or 3 of those teams had found certain items.
And those items were then shared with investigators, with the RCMP.
Yes.
And they did respond, the RCMP, with saying that the stuff that was found they didn't believe it to be...
Were not of interest, yes.
Yeah. And how did that make you feel? Like, were you...
I was disappointed. There were a couple of items that just by a picture alone being shown to the mother to see if it was recognizable to her, it did bother me. I will say that, well, to me, in my view, I would have just picked it up just in case. I wouldn't go by... it's so hard to say it without just outright pointing fingers, but to me, there were adults on that property where 2 kids went missing. So why are we depending on those adults to be the ones to determine whether something is important.
That's a really good point. In the end, as far as moving the investigation forward, it didn't seem like, or it doesn't seem like this search was what was going to break the case open. But yourself, as someone who's watching closely of every twist and turn in this, how does it feel at this point now? Like, do you feel like this is going to go on forever?
It is feeling like that. It's been feeling like that for a while, but you still hope that any little search that anybody does, that maybe they can find something that would help to open this up more, to give us more answers. So I am still, I'm hoping PBMH will come back out again. They don't plan on coming till spring. So I'm hoping the hunters that are out there, any of the ATV trails that the ATV people, the clubs and that use, I'm hoping everybody will just kind of keep their eyes open and pay attention to anything that stands out. Because I think the answers are there. We just need to find them.
One thing I've noticed, just as someone watching this story from the outside, is in the early days, weeks, and even months, there was a lot more like mainstream news coverage. There was like, it seemed like every couple days there was something new out, but it really seems like it's slowed down over the last, month or so. Luckily, what this search did was really brought Jack and Lily's names and faces back in the news. But aside from that, it's been a lot more quiet. Does that scare you as someone so close to this, like to go weeks without even news coverage?
Scare is not even the word to describe it, because you just don't want it to go quiet. I want everybody to keep talking about this, to keep wondering, to keep asking questions. I want more volunteers that are willing to go out on their own or join a group and get together and look, let's do something for a weekend. Let's just go out and walk some trails, because it's a big area and it's hard for anybody to cover because the area is so big. And I would like to see more searches taking place outside of the original search area.
It was tough at the end, this idea, like when I asked her about the media coverage cooling down, does that scare you? Scared isn't even the word, she said. And it's, like I notice it as someone from the outside, like when the story starts to go away, I'm like, ooh, this is not a good sign. People that close to it, that just must be horrifying.
Oh, and like I can't imagine, I'm not sure guilt is the right word, but like Belynda hadn't seen the kids for so long, and like that doesn't mean that this is any less hard for her. Like they're still her grandkids, and I couldn't imagine what she's going through, or anyone in the family.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to get into all the family stuff with her, but what she did say was even after the breakup of Malaya and her son, she was still in the children's lives. Malaya was making a point to take the kids over and, they'd all hang out. So she still had a role in their lives. But it wasn't until Daniel came in the picture and he was uncomfortable with that. And that led to Belynda and her part of the family kind of being shut out from the children's lives. And that's really sad. But I think at one point, in one way, maybe you could say she was moving on with her life and that was a part of her old life and she was moving forward. And even if that was the case, there would be people critical of saying you can't move forward from family. It's that family is forever. But I think there's a part of this conversation about Daniel is this idea of controlling. And Malaya's family have come out and accused him of being somewhere between controlling and abusive, or maybe even past that line. But Belynda saying that Daniel having a role in her not seeing them anymore, I don't like that.
I'm not saying that I think he had anything to do with the kids' disappearance. But like I said, the more I find out about him, the worse kind of a person I think he is. Because Belynda sounds like a lovely woman. And I know that my in-laws are the loveliest people on earth. And I know how lucky I am because of that, because I hear horror stories all the time. So Belynda is willing to be part of the children's lives, be part of the village. And Malaya was into it until Daniel came into the picture. If you are so insecure about anything like this, why would you date a woman with kids? Like, the kids have a father that isn't you, and that's still family. And yeah, just I don't like it. And Belynda, like, they're so lucky that Belynda sounds so normal. You know, she was involved when she was allowed to be, and when they put the kibosh on that, she took a step back. She was like, okay, like, I'm not going to ruffle any feathers. But yeah, Daniel sounds very insecure.
Yeah, that's a really, really bad look for a stepfather, I would say.
Right. And like, I'm not saying it would be any better if he were insecure and jealous about Cody, the ex. But I could understand that more. We're talking about the grandmother. The ex isn't even in the picture. He's not there. He's not like, so you don't want your girlfriend and her children to be anywhere around any family from that side? This is getting weird.
That is
Grow up.
getting, yeah. When she started answering those questions and got into that, I was like, oh, I'm not feeling good about this.
No.
The idea, like, if you love kids, you want them to have a relationship with their grandparents. Maybe I'm extra sensitive to grandparents and the relationship with grandparents because of my childhood and stuff. But yeah, the idea of being jealous about that or uncomfortable about it or whatever, really nasty look. But what about this is I didn't realize going into this conversation that it was Belynda trying to make things happen, goes onto this website for Please Bring Me Home and is the one that coaxes them into coming down here to Nova Scotia from Ontario to do the search. I think that's pretty amazing. And I think that shows her commitment to making things happen in this case.
That speaks volumes, I think. Yeah, Belynda is the like silent superstar of all of this.
It seems it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I should also say that Belynda had to, in terms of the discussion around this case, she kind of had to overcome a bit of adversity in the beginning because in the early days, her son Cody was seen as a bit of a villain online in the discussion. So she came in kind of associated with him and there was a lot of questions about that. But now it has completely turned where she is viewed by a lot of people following this case as the good guy and, the family trying to make this happen. CBC wouldn't have been covering it last week, nor would CTV and Global and anyone else had it not been for her getting a civilian group to come down here and do something. Yes, the search didn't find anything, but it did remind everyone that Jack and Lilly are still missing. And I think that's a big win. So let's take our final break. When we get back, we have an interesting segment to end the show with. This is nothing we've done in this series before. We reached out to listeners and followers of this case, asking them to share with us their thoughts, their opinions, and maybe some of their theories on what's happening here in the disappearance of Jack and Lilly. We have a couple interesting voicemails to break down. So take a quick break. When we get back, we'll pass the mic to them. So Madeleine, this next segment, this series of voicemails we're going to talk about is going to take us all over the place because we basically just called out for theories, opinions, ideas, anything someone wants to say about this case. Our voicemail box was open. Anyone who wants, and I should say since we're here, anyone who wants to contribute to the show, go to thecanadiangothic.com/contact and you can send us a voicemail like the following people have. We got a bunch of voicemails to go through. I tried to put them in a little bit of an order to keep us on track, so let's just jump right in. First person we're going to hear from is a listener named Amy, and she wants to weigh in on what we're referring to as the ear witness. You'll recall that people in the community, two gentlemen, recalled hearing vehicles in and around the home the night the kids went missing. The RCMP investigated and eventually came out and said, we don't believe that there were vehicles coming and going. We talked about that in a past episode, but let's hear what Amy has to say about it.
Hey guys, listening to the newest episode on Jack and Lilly. And I'm in Cape Breton, but I live in an area very remote, just like Lansdowne. And you notice when a car comes and goes. You know the noises, the sound of your neighbors. You know exactly when that truck is going to shift going up the hill because you hear it 3 times a day, every day, for example. And if I, out of the ordinary, was hearing a car that I know is my neighbor's or sounds like my neighbor's going back and forth all night, when it doesn't do that every night, I would for sure take note of it. And I wouldn't jump right to the cops either. I would talk to my neighbors, like, did you hear that car last night? Or, did you see it? It's clearly out of the ordinary. And then I would go to the cops, or unless the cops knocked at my door first, you know what I mean?
So I think when we talked about the ear witness, I don't know if it was you or I or both of us, but kind of poo-pooed the idea, like, why would you remember that? Like in the middle of the night, a week later, you remember like something you heard on some random night, 5 or 6 days ago. I couldn't relate to that, but in hearing Amy, I realized that I never lived in like this quiet dead end road in the middle of nowhere where every little car would be this unique sound and this, silence crushing thing. So maybe I'm just not a good person to gauge how likely or unlikely it is to remember something that you heard several nights prior.
See, I don't live in a rural, isolated area, and I just realized I am that neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't live on a busy street by any means. And yeah, like if I notice or hear a car driving by, I'm like the one looking out my window, or in the middle of the night, if like there's even just a little bit of action, I'm watching.
Really?
Because I often think to myself, I'm like, if something went wrong, I just saw everything and I can report back to what I saw. Nothing ever has happened, but I'm very nosy.
At the time, I would notice it. If I was sitting in my house and I heard a car drive by, I would notice the car drive by. I'd hear the sound of it. It was a big truck. It was a small car. It was a motorbike, whatever. I maybe would remember that. But keep in mind that these people heard this before like Jack and Lilly were reported missing and it was news. So if you came to, so it wouldn't have been that valuable or important at that time, or at least you wouldn't have thought
just
it was
noticeable.
So like if you came to me today and you're like, Jordan, like the most important thing ever that has ever happened near your house 3 nights ago, did you hear anything? I'd be like, what? I'd be going through my phone looking at photos I took to that night, like the timestamps, to try to even figure out what night they were talking about. I would never remember, like a motorbike drove by and it backed up and then it drove away again. Like I would never remember that. But then again, a lot of cars pass by my house. But you get what I mean? Like, Madeleine, like you look out your window and you're the nosy neighbor that makes sure everything's safe out there. Did anything happen outside your house 3 nights ago?
Not that I recall. Not that, but nothing, noteworthy has happened. So
I have a hard time with that. But according to Amy, who has better experience living in a kind of a quieter, more remote area than you or I do, maybe we're just we're not the right people to weigh in on that. But either way, this whole thing with the ear witnesses, we talked about it quite a bit on a prior episode. The RCMP have an incredible amount of video footage and everything else from that area. So I like to think that if vehicles were coming and going on the streets, they would have been seen. If they were going through the woods, there would have been tracks and stuff found. And
we've discussed this before, many times before, but like, that's why this case is so baffling, is because the RCMP and, police have gone through the security footage with a fine-tooth comb. Like, no one that shouldn't have been in the area was in there. Where did these kids go?
Yeah. And it all comes down to, did the kids wander off and get lost in the woods and nobody can find them for whatever like bizarre reason, or did someone take the kids? And it seems that that's the only 2 options. We have a series of voicemails I'm going to play that relate to the abduction hypothesis, we'll call it, people believing that the kids were abducted. Let's start with a listener named Cindy, who does believe the kids were abducted.
This is Cindy calling from the source of much hell that is Washington, D.C. I just wanted to comment on the Jack and Lilly saga and the many episodes that have unfolded during this long period of time that the mystery has continued. My theory is that, I mean, it seems kind of an obvious one, right? Like they seem to just have been abducted, but I'm not entirely convinced that the parents didn't somehow arrange it. For what purpose? I'm not sure if it has something to do with the mother's ex-husband or the father, the biological father of the children. Or, they were abducted by a stranger and they're so far away that, any local evidence is never going to be found. Anyway, that's my theory. Love the show. Thanks.
She makes a good point. Abduction seems to be the only thing that makes sense in my mind, and it seems to be in Cindy's as well. But as far as, is it a stranger? Is it someone close to the family? That seems to be the mystery that everyone's discussing. I'm just going to jump right into the next voicemail because several people discuss the abduction hypothesis and their own unique kind of theories set within that. Let's hear from a listener named Christy, and she's going to be talking about the tip we discussed in a past episode as well, which is it appeared in the police search warrant documents. It was the morning the children were reported missing. A witness recalled seeing two children walking down a street towards a sedan that had a back door open. So a listener named Chris,
wasn't a woman standing outside of the
almost like
car?
Ushering the kids into the car.
Yeah.
Police investigated this as well and were never able to identify the kids or this woman or the sedan. And this tip is credible to me because not only did the tipster report the tip, but several days later, they actually went with the police and did almost like a reenactment, drove the police through it to show where they saw it and everything. But anyway, a listener named Christy believes that may be an important witness report. Let's listen to why.
One thing that I noticed in the documents was that the woman that seen the two children get into the back of a tan sedan car, a girl and a boy. The girl was wearing pigtails, shorts, and a tank top, and the boy resembled much of a 5-year-old, which Jack is. And that the police just discounted. They haven't found that tan sedan or the children in it. So I feel that the children were abducted, probably by somebody in the community who knew they were being neglected or something along those lines. And I feel them turning a blind eye to the abduction possibility was very not good of the RCMP. There's lots of gossip going around that somebody close to Malaya's family did take the kids to keep them safe and away from CPS. I really do think that needs to be looked into. I don't feel that it's the First Nation itself. I believe it's individuals who are working together. And I have seen children go hiding because they're going to get their kids taken from social services. I'm starting to lead towards that it does have something to do with this whole situation.
Some interesting points.
Interesting.
Yeah, because one thing we've heard, and we've again kind of poo-pooed this idea, is this idea that people in Malaya's community have banded together and like rescued the kids and are hiding them away and all this stuff to protect the kids from, abuse of Daniel and all this horrible stuff Daniel's done. I've never thought that was credible, but at the same time, one thing we do know is that CPS was heavily involved in the kids' lives, and it seemed like things weren't going great in that regard. That side of things, the Child Protective Services and their role in this story, is still largely the stuff of hearsay and the unknown, because none of those documents have come out to show how bad it was or how close it got to Jack and Lilly being taken away. But
I don't think those documents ever will come out.
I don't think so either.
No.
But be it to hide the kids or that's the moment that leads to something happening, I think is an interesting idea.
See, this is why I really like listening to other people's opinions and stuff, is because you get a fresh perspective. I like this perspective, actually, because I never thought of this. So, because we've already established that if either parents or both parents were involved, they would have sold each other out. Like week number one, Daniel is not a criminal mastermind. Like, it's 2025. They would have gotten something out of him.
I
now.
Believe so. Yeah.
Or even Malaya. So what if this caller is kind of onto something? What if maybe Malaya's family with Malaya and Daniel not even knowing, we're like, we got to do something. We got to step in. Daniel's nuts. We got to get these kids out of there.
Yeah. CPS is going to, if we don't, CPS is going to take them.
And then they're going to be in the system, which we don't want.
Yeah. At least it gives some motive that makes sense. But that said, I still don't see how, like, I could see getting them out of there and avoiding CPS, like grabbing them and putting them in the system. But to keep them for this long seems unusual. Because what's the end game here? Are you just going to hide them forever? Not like you're not going to send them to school. They'll never go to a doctor's office. They'll never get a job. Like, what is the end game? Because if something like that happens, there's this like family abduction. They take the kids to avoid CPS taking them. It seems like that ends 3 days later when an arrest is made, and like I just don't see that going on for 7 months.
Right. Well, because at this point, I'm also like, they had to have been abducted, but had to have been a stranger abduction. But the chances of a stranger abduction in, what is it, New Lansdowne Station?
Just Lansdowne Station. Okay. It's a very remote, rural area. Not the kind of place that would be a high risk for two kids getting scooped up at, 9 o'clock, 8:30 on a Friday morning.
It would just be the perfect storm. And like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but statistically, the chances are so low. So, but that's what I've thought. Like, it wasn't the parents. It was like, they've dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's, and we don't know anything.
If it is a stranger abduction, it happens in this Goldilocks moment between the kids going outside, grandmother's in the RV in the backyard and hears them, but doesn't hear the car come in the driveway and get them.
And then somehow the car avoids all security cameras in the area. And it's just, it doesn't make sense. Nothing about this case makes sense, but
that's the thing. Nothing makes sense. I'm going to play one more voicemail that relates to an abduction. This is also like a rescue themed abduction, but it has a bit of a different spin. Here's a listener named Tanis.
My idea about Jack and Lilly is that maybe somebody realized how they were being raised. I don't want to sound bad towards the mom and dad, but a lot of things don't add up. And maybe somebody else came in and decided to take the kids and give them a better life. That's what I hope. So maybe people were watching and, it was talked about in the community, and this is what has happened, that somebody came in and took the kids for a better life. Thank you.
So I guess the spin on Tanis's idea was, rather than it being like family members, it being community members. I still think like I get the idea and how that could be something that could happen, but I don't see it. What's the end game? You see some kids who live down the street from you who are being treated poorly, and you abduct them to give them a better life. That sounds an awful lot like a bad thing that gets you in jail for a long time.
But what we have to remember is our experiences are not their experiences. Anyone. Like, there are some communities, homes, it's not a different city, it's a different planet. And like, some people live in ways that we can't even imagine. So people also think in different ways that we can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
I don't see anyone getting away with it. And what is the end game? What do you hide them in your house forever? You can't take them to the doctor. You can't bring them to a dentist. What happens if they get a throat infection or an ear infection or a pink eye, and the million other little things that kids get constantly. Not to mention, these children seem to have I don't know if the right word would be special needs or learning disabilities or whatever. These are kids that are gonna take a little work in parenting. There's two of them. I don't see an abduction to rescue them from CPS.
They're also 4 and 6, which is like verbal, and they remember stuff. Like, you're not taking babies that you can like reshape and rename and just give them a new identity and that's how they live. Like, these kids already have lives that they know about.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
We all know kids can't lie.
Mm-hmm.
They're very terrible liars.
Yeah.
So.
I'm sure there are people listening though who could think of a case where someone was abducted and it went on for years and they got away with it or whatever. And if it does happen, it's like a 1 in a million thing. And to do it to two people two kids.
To like change identities and whatever else.
Yeah, I don't believe if and when the answer is found, I don't think it's going to be an abduction that relates to rescuing the kids from CPS or a bad situation. But I do see how that, with the limited information we have, I see how that could make sense.
That's what I hope happens. I hope the kids were taken by someone who loves them and they're alive and well and have no idea that all of this is going on. Maybe they're none the wiser. That would be the best case scenario.
Well, that would really be the best case scenario. And that's like the only positive outcome is that that's what it ends up being.
Yeah.
Here's another message I want to play. And this is an interesting one. It's from a listener named Sam, who kind of ponders maybe the parents aren't being honest, and maybe it's not because they did something that led to the kids' deaths or disappearance, but maybe they do have something to hide. Here's what Sam has to say.
Hi, I am Sam. I'm a listener from the United States, and I just wanted to give my opinion on the Jack and Lilly Sullivan case. I think I'm feeling most likely that there wasn't necessarily any foul play involved. I think something did happen to the kids at the home, whether they left and they got lost in the woods or something actually happened inside their residence. I think that Malaya and Daniel fudged the timeline for some reason of the events. We have the weird phone call to her mother that was mentioned in the last episode. We have was Daniel sleeping early the night before, or was he cleaning? Yada, yada. I think it's just weird as a parent to sleep in with a 4-year-old running around the house. That's odd. So I do think that something happened. I don't necessarily think, again, that it was foul play per se. I think maybe something happened and the parents were either negligent and they needed to fudge the timeline to make themselves look less negligent, or there was another sort of accident that was covered up. That's my personal opinion. I don't think it could have been a stranger abduction. The cops don't seem to believe it was a stranger abduction. They have enough footage to discredit earlier witness statements about a vehicle coming and going the night before, so they should be able to easily discredit the stranger abduction theory as well. So that's why I trust the police's opinion in that situation. So that leads me to believe that unless somebody came in with a helicopter and abducted these kids, that they either left and went into the woods and went missing, or something happened to them at the home and Malaya and Daniel covered it up. I do think there's a secondary situation that's going on besides the kids going missing. Daniel and Malaya breaking up within 48 hours after their children go missing. That's fast. It's not unusual at all for relationships to have problems, but it wasn't even long enough for the shock to kick in for either of them. So that tells me there was much more to the inner workings of that house than anyone yet knows, and except for maybe the police. And that's just my theory.
It's an interesting one, right?
She's right. We've discussed this time and time again, the sleeping in thing. And she's right. Like a 4-year-old, in my mind, just because I'm not great with kids, I've only ever really been around mine for a long time, and she's not even 2. But in my head, I think a 4 or 5-year-old is so independent and stuff. But one of my nephews is 6 today. And I look at him and I'm like, you're still a baby. A 4 or 5-year-old absolutely needs supervision.
They're just loud, active babies that can really get into trouble.
Oh, and they just bumble around and I for some reason in my head, I think a 4, 5, 6-year-old is so much more independent and mature than they are. But then I look at a 4 or 5-year-old and I'm like, you're a baby. Yeah. Why would I ever let you in my house unsupervised?
Yeah. And Sam's idea is not that Malaya and Daniel set whatever happened in motion, but maybe something happened that would look badly or could get them in trouble. And maybe that would be motivation to be dishonest or fudge the timeline or make stuff up or try to hide something. And maybe that makes a bit more sense, but I still think that
But they can't. No, they would have sold each other out by
they
now.
break up. Yeah. So it would need, so like to talk this out, it would need to be something that was equally damaging to both of them.
Mhm.
Something that would land both of them in jail. It would make it so neither of them will ever see their other kids again. Because they do have
Or is Malaya that scared of Daniel?
she's been away from him long enough. She's separate from him now. I would think he's not that dangerous of a guy. I can't imagine. Like I think it'd be a different situation when you're stuck together in the little house in the
Yeah.
middle of nowhere. But going on 7 months later, if he was that awful, I feel like she's escaped now.
I don't know. You never know. He could have threatened to kill her mom, or
But well, and then also if he did something and she had it against him and had proof of it or whatever, or evidence of it, and she could prove that, he would go to jail and she would be.
oh, it's just so hard to say. We need answers.
I know that's it's.
I want answers.
Yeah, but imagine how the people close to it. Like thinking of Belynda.
Oh my God.
I guarantee she lays in bed just doing the math with all of this every night.
How could you not?
Yeah, and the problem is, it never makes sense. Like, no, I feel like any theory and calling out for ideas through voicemails, I knew it was a practice in frustration because any theory, you only need to think of it for a second. You're like, no, there's no possible way.
Yeah.
And-
And we've gone down every avenue, and every time we think like, you know what? Yeah, that's a good explanation, or that's a good theory. It's always debunked.
Yeah, and again, like we said earlier, I think in the end, if the family dynamic and the living conditions in that home and the way the children were raised, if that does not directly result in their disappearance, that is going to be the hugest red herring that has hung over this case the entire time. I'm going to play one last voicemail, and this will call back to some things we talked about in the past, but it's possibly an explanation for why there is no answer and may not be one in the future. Here's what Liz has to say.
Hi, Jordan and Madeline. I have a theory about what happened to Jack and Lilly Sullivan. I can't stop thinking about those old mine shafts in the area. I think that probably what happened is they fell into a mine shaft, or maybe one of them fell in and the other one went in after to get the other one, and then it collapsed in on them, and that's the reason why the police couldn't find them and the cadaver dogs couldn't smell them, is because they're buried under rubble in a mine shaft. That's my theory.
It's so dark to think of, and I almost, when I got that voicemail, I was like, oh, I don't even want to share that. But at the same time, to me, it's something like that is the only thing that makes any sense.
Yeah. And it is so sad and so dark.
Mm-hmm.
But what else happened?
Yeah, there are people who go missing and they're just never ever found. It's just there's usually not two of them.
Right. And whether we ever find out what happened, whether it was a complete accident or whether there was foul play, what I keep thinking about is when the kids weren't lost, their home life wasn't great. And that just breaks my heart because kids are so innocent. They're so innocent and they didn't deserve any of this. It's just such a terrible situation all around.
Yeah, it is. And to have no explanation and no answer it's very.
Well, and now they have a sibling who's going to grow up and this is going to be the nucleus of their lives.
Yeah.
They may not remember a lot of it, might be their first memory, but they're going to grow up with Malaya and know that they had two older siblings that went missing when they were a year and a half old. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even worse than that, not only did you have two siblings that went missing and all this stuff, but then there's also a huge amount of people who think your mother did it.
oh my God, I didn't even think of that.
So yeah, it is so dark, and all the family dynamics. We've even heard it in this episode. We talked to Belynda, who kind of hinted to some of the difficulty within the family. If you recall, in the vigil that was for Jack's birthday and the 6-month anniversary, Daniel Martel was there, but it didn't seem like Malaya's family was there. Then when you hear about the search that Please Bring Me Home did, Belynda said Malaya's family was involved and was supportive of that, and Malaya was even in communication with Please Bring Me Home in the lead up to that. So it seems like everything is kind of divided as far as who's involved in what.
For sure.
but Belynda seems to be kind of the solid moving through, which is kind of ironic being the grandmother, because that's kind of the role the grandmother should play.
Yeah. It's she's almost the nucleus of things rolling. So
yeah, it's interesting. But anyway, up until now in our series, this is now our 14th episode covering this disappearance. We've always focused specifically on updates. They're getting fewer and further between. Again, luckily this week there was this episode we've had a few things that kept the conversation moving. We had the listeners chime in with their theories, and I appreciate everyone who sent us a voicemail by going to thecanadiangothic.com/contact and using the voice recorder. As far as what comes next, I really don't know, because I don't want to have an episode where we're just sitting here shooting the breeze. So I think people need to get involved and make things happen. If anyone close to the story wants to talk to us, get in touch, because I'd be happy with having more voices contribute to this.
absolutely.
I want to thank you for joining us for this episode of The Canadian Gothic. Now, before we part here, I want to send positive vibes to everyone affected by this case, and I also want to call out to anyone close to the story to reach out to me. I'd be happy to add your voice to the show if you care to speak with us. Now, with that said, I'm going to start wrapping this episode up, but before I do, let me end with some thanks. First, a massive thank you to Linz, who provides our intro and outro voiceovers, and Monty Data, who provides the music for this show. A massive thank you to Madeleine Klein for sharing another evening with me and with you, the listeners of the Canadian Gothic. And lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. Now, on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed. Emma, Francine, and Tara, thank you for your generous support. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show, you can do it in a variety of ways. First of all, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple bucks a month, and that money will fund the creation of new episodes. But the premium feed will also give you those episodes 2 days early, give them to you ad-free, and give you access to a back catalog of episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium at thecanadiangothic.com/subscribe. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the show by sharing this episode on social media and letting all your like-minded friends know why they should listen. Your support is very much appreciated. So now to close this all off, until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let me know if you see anything weird.
Thank you for listening to Canadian Gothic.